this before, so now we're live.
Are we?
We're
Are you
live.
sure? Okay, this was a bit of an awkward start because we had some technical issues before, but now we are live apparently. So this is Playmaker TV episode 11. We are going to talk about some transfers that have been made during the winter window, and this is the first time we have a guest with us. We're going to wait a little bit to announce our guest, even though he is probably very familiar to most of you that watch this. Jesper, how is Gothenburg?
As normal nowadays, I would say. We actually have snow, or we actually have snow for the moment, and not rain, so that's refreshing. But it's going to be gone tomorrow or something, probably. So.
Yeah, we had snow for 24 hours in Linköping as well, but it's gone now, I must say. Do you have snow in where you are, Abdullah?
No, I don't have snow. Thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much. Honored to be the first guest on the show. I've never done live, so this is the first time. I've never been live anywhere, so this is going to be interesting.
Do you feel the excitement of that anything can happen while we do this? Because you can't edit it out now.
I know. I'm partially scared because I am used to the podcast setting where I can just say whatever and we can just delete it. No, but I think it should be interesting, and to do it with both of you should be a lot of fun. I just need to remember that it's not a recording, and then when I'm on camera, I just can't do random things like, I don't know, look down and pick things up and things like that.
You're gonna pick this up very fast.
Yeah, I know. So back to your original question, do I get snow? We don't get in the main city, in the mainland, there's no snow. Very rarely, on very rare occasions, we've had snow in the upper regions of the mountains at the highest peaks. We've had snow once or twice in the history of this place. So there has been history of snow a little bit, but it's a very rare sighting. And yeah, otherwise the answer is no. It's just warm. It's not warm, actually. It's quite cool. It's nice. It's like summer for you guys. I mean, I can just put it that way.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now we feel so much better. But
I know, right? It's amazing.
We need to take a moment to announce something because you have big news, Abdullah.
Yes, I do. So a few months ago, I had pretty much said that I was in the process of writing my third book on the Lionesses, and after many months of writing, flying out to various countries to watch games, coming back, finishing writing under pressure, and handing it in, I can finally say that my third book on the Lionesses will be out in April, and it'll be available for pre-order from today. So just right after this, I'm going to tweet it out, and with the cover and all the links and everything. So yeah, it's a fun time, and the England squad just got announced, so I can't think of a better time to put this out there.
Yeah, we're very honored that you wanted to announce it here as also. So, yeah, big news. And the book is going to be about what we are going to talk about partially in this episode as well. Football analysis, stats, and players. We have chosen 5 players for this episode that have transferred changed team during the window. We've tried to make them come from different leagues, different parts of the world, and different positions. We have done our best to mix it up, and we are going to do this like that. Jesper is going to present the players, and the first player will be Julia Roddar. I'm going to say this very Swedish now. Julia Roddar. She has played for Washington Spirits 2 seasons, and she is now returning to Sweden, and she has signed for Hammarby. And this player is very exciting because she can play many positions, and she has lots of qualities too, I think. So Jesper, hit it off.
Yes, I'm gonna show my presentation here, and we'll go through some data and then have a discussion about what the players can do at their teams. So let's hit it off. So yeah, exactly. We will start talk about Julia Roddar in the NWSL, or now in Damallsvenskan next season, starting in about 2 months, roughly. And you can of course see her in the cup as well, that is starting in a month or a couple of weeks only. So yeah, here is her spider. Here's her average position spider, based on the balancing midfielder. Julia Roddar has been used in a different position, which we will see later on. But here is a start spider where you can see especially that she's been very important in gaining meters and advancing the ball forward, progressing the ball. That's what it means with gain pass and gain carry. So that's a measurement of in meters how much you progress the ball forward. Also the crosses, and she's been good at not causing fouls, winning the duels without causing any fouls and free kicks for the opponent. If we move on to have her avatar spider here, we can see that she matches mostly with the regista, which is coming from that she is mostly good at progressing the ball forward. The regista is a defensive midfielder usually that is more known for being a spider in the web, dividing the ball within the team, and advancing the ball forward more than winning duels and recovering the ball. She still has a pretty good match towards the anchor, but she fairly matches with the being more a hybrid that we talked about in the Erin Cuthbert episode of balancing midfielders that can do both. I've chosen to take out this X and Y plot here, and the X and Y plot is for tackles per 90, that is adjusted for possession. And we also have the gain 90, which is both passes and carries. And we can see then, based on the other balancing midfielders in the NWSL that has played more than 750 minutes, that she is in progressing in the ball. There's only 3 balancing midfielders that has done it more, which is really good. And when it comes to tackles and winning the ball, she's roughly in the middle, adjusting the possession. And here is the roll spider, the big roll spider, which is just showing Julia Roddar in red here. There's a lot to break down. We maybe go down to these later. And then we have the black, which is the regista roll, an average regista, which is shown here in black, and an average anchor, which is shown in blue here. So this is a comparison to see that when it comes to receptions, she's matching more with the regista, for example. But when it comes to how many balls you lose per 90, she's more matching with the anchor. So there's some points where she matches more with the anchor.
Yeah, we need to say that this graph we are tweeting in the comments below the live stream on Twitter at Playmaker's Twitter account.
Yes. Okay. We have the heat map. The actions in possession, you can see that they are both centrally, but also to the left, and we will see why they are to the left soon, which we also can see in the defensive actions we have a cluster that is more central and a bit to the right, and then we have 2 clusters that are more to the left. And what that comes from really is that she's been used in different positions. So I've been taking out 3 different pass networks that are from 3 different games to show an example of how she's been used. So most games she played central midfielder balancing, a bit to the right in defense, that we also saw in the cluster here for defense. We could see a similar thing, similar spot. And then she's also been playing mostly to the left as a fullback, also used to the right as a fullback for at least one game. So there's really a broad variation in how she's been used as a player. So I can go back to the big spider here, and so Mia Abdullah, what do you think about Julia Roddar going to the Damallsvenskan?
Yeah, I'm quite curious on what Abdullah could say about this, because the thing is with Hammarby is that they play a very high pressing football and they want to play fast. They were quite similar, or not quite similar. They were very similar to Linköping last season in the Damallsvenskan, but they mostly played with the back four, but they rotated between a back four and a back three more in Hammarby than Linköping did, because Linköping played with a back three. But Elise Kellon Knight has left Hammarby, obviously a very important part of Hammarby's midfield. So Abdullah, when you look at Julia Roddar's profile here in data, what can she add to Hammarby?
Well, kind of going off what you said, I was just looking at this now, and you talked about there being a high pressing team. I mean, I'm looking at this, and I think there's two things. I think if you're a high pressing team, which means that when you get the ball, I mean, obviously this is the one part of winning the ball back and then having quick transitions through the midfield or through the final third and get it counter attack quick. And I think I'm going to start the other way. I think if and when they win the ball back, wherever they win it from, I'm assuming she's going to be a heavy part of that, because you look at the red parts, right? And there's a lot of progressive carrying, progressive passing, switches that she's really, really good at in comparison to most anchors and registas, and she's better than most registas if I can read this correctly, which I think then really helps when it comes to then trying to get the ball from in that case her deeper position up to the attackers. And I think being able to carry the ball then just kind of opens up a lot more space for other players to get into space from an attacking position, because then players would have to come towards her to try and tackle her, and that obviously opens up space higher up. So for me, that's a big advantage of having her there theoretically. And I think from a winning the ball back perspective, it does see here that she's got like she wins a lot of fouls, she's got a decent amount of tackling, her expected threats are really, really high. So I think from a winning the ball back, and then more importantly trying to get the ball up into dangerous areas, whether it's through passing or carrying the ball, I think is really, really good. And like one more thing I just saw here is that the XT passes and the XT carries, which I'm assuming is expected threat carries. I mean, that if you look especially the XT carries, right, for 90, that's quite high. That's almost like at the Regista level, but generally it's quite high if we're looking at her as both like a mixture of a Regista and a bit of an anchor. I think that is the biggest thing. The fact that she can dangerously carry it forward and, progress the ball at the same time at a higher rate per 90 minutes, I think that's probably going to be her biggest strength to Hammarby, and give them a lot more creativity and in terms of setting the team up for higher XG chances.
Yeah, and Jesper, you obviously know, I mean, we watch the Damallsvenskan quite often, and the NWSL is it's a famous league for being fast and furious.
Yeah.
Like, so do you agree with what Abdullah is saying here, according to what you just showed?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that this is a power signing for Hammarby as well. I mean, Hammarby has been aiming to rise the table and like really competing, and in the future compete for the titles, just as they as a goal every year on the men's side. And I think this is a good signing for them to get a central midfielder that can do both winning the ball and advancing it forward. So yeah, I think it would be great.
Yeah, I think actually I'm gonna say that I think she's the best recruitment in the Damallsvenskan this season. It's going to be very exciting to see her. But Abdullah, I want to ask you something more now, because this is a player that can play various positions across the pitch.
Yeah.
And what a player like that, with what she is good at, and what do you think the Swedish league can expect?
Well, the fact that she can play multiple different positions, I mean, we can see it in the passing network, right? Like there's three of them. One of them she's playing way out on the right, you know. One of them she's playing right in the center, and one of them she's playing way out on the left. Now, it could be that she's playing left back, left wing back, and in other situations she's playing a bit more as a right midfielder, and in the middle she's playing more as a central defensive midfielder. But the fact that she can almost play these three different positions and then keep her stats as high as they are, I think then becomes super useful, because then it kind of lends to the fact that she can rotate and play in a system where if they are going to be rotating positions, she can fill in for a lot of players. She will be able to let players, like especially the fullbacks, be able to maybe push up a lot more while she's covering up the sides, because she understands the positioning. She understands how the role needs to be played. And you know, obviously from a versatility standpoint, if there needs to be anything changed tactically, whether it's in game, before the game, specific games, then I think it's a huge bonus that you have a player that's so good in one position, but then has the experience of playing in several different positions. And obviously, she played alongside Andy Sullivan, who's a very good central midfielder as well, and obviously had the likes of like Trinity Rodman ahead of her, and Ashley Hatch. It's definitely, you know, a player that can unlock attacking talent, but also can cover in behind and allow players to push forward.
I'm going to ask you, both of you, one question about this player before we will move on to the next player. Jesper, let's start with you. Do you think it's weird that a player like Julia Roddar is not selected for the Swedish national team?
Oh, good question. Yeah, maybe. She could definitely be useful considering how well she plays. I don't know. I guess national team watches NWSL as much, but I used to think that maybe she's been out due to competition. That players like Angel Dahl, Björn Seger, for example, has been the ones they use, of course, good players, and that she's not been given room. Maybe in comparison to her age and wanting to fill up with younger players.
Let's go controversial here then, because you talk about a lot of players, but Abdullah, this is the player you have seen play also, so I think you can answer this, because Freja Olofsson from Real Madrid is in the Swedish squad today, but Julia Roddar isn't.
It's strange because, I mean, it's not like the US where a lot of players that have to be playing in the NWSL to get picked for the most part. I mean, we've seen examples of like players like Mia Fischel, who's playing in you know, for Tigres and hasn't been picked regardless of, you know, how her form is. So that obviously isn't the problem. It's maybe it is a little bit surprising that that Julia Roddar picked. But I'm not sure why. I mean, I know that Sweden have a lot of good central midfielders. I mean, you got Filippa Angadal, who's been starting to play and do really well, and obviously, like I said, Olofsson's also been selected in the squad. But it's a tough one. I actually genuinely I'm confused as to why she's not picked, because based on all the stats and based on everything that's here, you'd think that you'd want a versatile player like this, especially when Sweden often like to switch to a three at the back. You know, you get someone like Magda playing at left back, or a third, you know, left center back. And if you have someone like this that can cover these positions, especially wing backs, to go forward, I think that skill set would have been useful. But anyway, it's a coach's decision.
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, we move on to the next player.
Yes, we move on to another player from Sweden's neighbor country, Denmark. and it's Amelie Vangsgaard that made a big move quite recently to Paris Saint-Germain, and we will look at her season in Damallsvenskan this year. And at first, we have a very impressive spider. She was the top in almost all measurements among forwards offensively. She's a bit lower defensively here, and when it comes to pass and stuff, but that's more because she's acted like a classic 9 more than a false 9 and hasn't had a high amount of passes and so on. If we look at her avatar, she's matching mostly with the artist. You might think she could match towards the poacher as well. That's her second match. But one of the big reasons for her being matched with the artist here is the number of amount of shot assists that she doesn't only have. She's not only contributing with scoring goals, she's also contributing with key passes, assists, and generating chances through carries and being successful with the dribbles. So she's more than just a versatile poacher. Something that can be seen here as well when we look into the data more closely. You can see that she matches more with the poacher when it comes to shooting, for example, while as for the dribbles and XT, she's matching more with the artist. We will look through the goals, and here we have the big six. I will explain the big six because it's my term. It's not a standard name, but in the big six here is the 6 highest ranked leagues in Europe. So we don't have NWSL here, but we have England, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, and Sweden. And if we look at the strikers in 2022, so this is the entire Damallsvenskan season of 2022, and then it's for the other leagues in Europe that play autumn, spring. It's as long as they've played so far this season. And then I have here expected goals per 90 and goals per 90. So just looking at the average per game, and you can see here that she's one of the most the best converters and also one of the best XG contributors. There's not many players that are way above her. If anyone is sitting back home and wondering who's the top one here, it's Eva Pajor, who's up here. But it's like
No surprise.
really good numbers. And she's also above the line here for scoring more goals than expected. And another thing I wanted to mention here is if we still look at the big six, she's also amongst the top when it comes to goals per 90 and shot assists. So you really want to be up here, right? So like she's number 2 in goals per 90, and she's number 3 in shot assists per 90. So she can do both. Like she's contributing as much with delivering the ball to a teammate that can score. We talked about matching to the avatar. So she's
Who's number 1? Who's number 1?
I should have written it down. I think could be Sam Kerr, or we have also Khadija Shaw somewhere here. But I don't have it on paper. I can. Then I thought we would look at XT carries and XT passes as well. You can see that she's she's above average in both expected threat carries and expected threat passes. And if you want someone that can do both, that is a true dual player, she's one of the best in contributing both with passes and carries. Heat maps. Yeah, she's working all over the pitch, so she's really good at. It's not that centralized. Like she's moving towards each side of the pitch with her runs, and also creating space to receive balls from teammates. If we look more defensively, she's been having a defensive role that's been mostly centralized, with Linköping playing mostly with three, with her as a single striker here, but also a bit to the right. And I think that comes from, if we look at the past network, from when they've been playing with more of two strikers system. She's been defending or pressuring to the right, and that's been her role. While if we look at a game here, this is what they most play like, with very offensive wing backs, and Vangsgaard as the only striker. She's more been defending and pressuring, centralized here. So yeah, that's all the Vangsgaard slides.
All the Danish quality, straightly delivered from Linköping to PSG. And this is interesting because I would say that you are an expert on the French league, Abdullah. Yeah, I have the courage to say that too. So
okay, it's a lot of pressure now.
From looking at these slides, because we know that PSG needed a striker, even though they are number 2 in the league at the moment. They need a striker. So what do you say about Amalie Vangsgaard to PSG? Is she capable of hitting it off?
It's funny because they've obviously gone and got someone who's very much a playmaking striker, right? Someone who's going to drop deep, someone who's going to be able to do a lot of things off the ball, on the ball, kind of move it around, and also score as well as create things, which, if you look at it traditionally, they didn't really play with that sort of striker. I mean, Katoto is someone who prefers to stay on the shoulder, can play in and around the box and does stuff over there, but I think for the most part will hang around the box, try and find short spaces, and be able to just make runs within the box and score goal, right? She's able to create something out of nothing, almost like a bit more of an advanced complete striker. But I think with Vansgaard, it's interesting that they took a different turn where they wanted to go a bit more creative. And I think this maybe comes from the two reasons. One, I don't think they could find a similar profile of striker to Katoto, and I don't think there's that many there. So obviously it's difficult to replicate. But I think the fact that they have Licky Martens now come into the team, and obviously they have Diani, I think the reason for bringing Vansgaard in is so that she can play a bit more of a creative role and then allow the two wingers to kind of come inside and play a bit more centrally and a bit more in the box. So this time PSG didn't suddenly have two players almost attacking the box rather than just one. And I think both Diani and Martens prefer to come inside and play with the ball at their feet. And if Vansgaard can be someone who can almost create and help, I think it becomes a lot more prominent, a lot better for PSG, because then obviously you got people like Grace Joro, Jackie Gronin, who are playing in midfield. They can make late runs into the box. So that's kind of my theory about it over there. And if you look at her, I mean, I'm looking at the map again. Like, her shots per 90, like you said, is high. Her XT carries is high. Her expected threat assists are high. So a lot of the goal creating aspects of it is high, but then at the same time, if she needs to go and score, it's not like she doesn't know how to. She has the qualities to do that. And I think for a player that PSG, you can't just be one or the other. You need to be able to do both, unless, again, like you're Katoto and you're just too good at scoring goals, that you'll score like 20-25 goals a season, like without even thinking about it, and do it kind of everywhere. So you can kind of be that sort of player. But I think anybody else, you need to be able to kind of do a little bit of both in this sort of system. And before this injury, we haven't really seen PSG do anything else. So this is actually, in my mind, sort of new for them. So it'll be interesting to see how she does as the season progresses.
Yeah, and Jesper, I mean, we have watched Amalie last season in the Damallsvenskan, and she could score many different goals.
Yeah.
It was diving headers, it was strikes in the box, outside the box, and the run she made. So when you watched it it was quite clear that she was Linköping's number 9.
Yeah.
So with what Abdullah is saying, do you think that Amalie Vangsgaard will have lots of success in PSG, or will it take some time for her to adjust? I mean, obviously it takes time for every player to adjust when they change league, in looking at it from many different perspectives, but you know what I mean. I mean, PSG is a big club.
Yeah, it's a big club. It's a different environment, and I think that she can fit into it pretty quickly. But it's also a club where there will always be good competition, and I guess the harsh reality of also, like, if you're not performing, there could be another player on the way in. So she just needs to handle that pressure and believe in herself, because I think the quality is right there to become a top striker in the world. Like, I show the numbers from like when we compared it to other players in the top league, and Damallsvenskan is still a very good league. There's a step, but I wouldn't say if you compare every team in between Damallsvenskan and the French league, like that difference is that big. Like they have the top teams are better, but like the environment's still the same. So I think she has what it takes. Something that I think that Nishi maybe could need to improve on. Like, she's very good in the last pass, but something that you can see, like maybe when she's under pressure, is that her passing percentage is a bit lower compared to other forwards. So like when the tempo is higher in the French league, that's something that she maybe needs to improve and adapt coming to a better team, I would say.
Yeah, and that was actually my final question before we move on to the next player, Abdullah. What do you think? Because I mean, we must admit it. We talk a lot about, you know, players coming from Scandinavia going out to the bigger leagues now. So what is the step she has been taking from being the top scorer in the Damallsvenskan, scoring 24 goals in 25 games, I think it was, to PSG and the French league?
I mean, it'll be tough, right? I think it's easy to say that, you know, like you said, like it's not easy for players coming from pretty much Scandinavia and moving to other parts of Europe and kind of hitting it off. I don't know if we've seen too many players. I mean, if we're talking about it, I know that Pernille Harder came from Wolfsburg, but even that took a while to adjust, going from Germany to England, right? And I think Magda, when she went from Sweden to England, I think was an adjustment as well. So I think even the best of players take their time, and I think it'll be the same. I think there will be an element of a time to adjust and time to just adjust, get better, get rid of the systems. And I think this is no dunk and no disrespect to anybody that she's been playing with when she was in the Damallsvenskan, but going from there and then going to a team like PSG, where you got like players who are like world class, much higher level and pedigree, I think that will maybe take her by a little bit of surprise, and that'll, I think it'll be, maybe it might be an initial shock to the system, quote unquote, but I think at the same time it will enable her to become a better striker. And once she settles into the side, knows what they want to do, and starts playing with them more and more, especially in training and then obviously coming on in games and starting the odd game, I just think that her ceiling and her quality will just get even better. Because if you is one of the top strikers in your old league and you scored a lot of goals, you've got something about you, and that should translate. Now, I think it's just a matter of how much it takes to translate into the PSG team.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, from one striker to another, I would say we're gonna move on to Bethany England.
Oh yeah.
Who has left Chelsea and joined Tottenham, and we have already seen what she might add or could add to Tottenham, I would say. But this is a player that hasn't played so much this season, so we had to go back in time to track her data, right, Jesper?
Yeah, so we're looking at the Women's Super League from last season here. And you can look at the spider, and then you can imagine like sitting on the bench the entire Euros still. It's it's yeah, England has such a good team, but like this spider is amazing. It's very like she's above average in everything. It's quite similar to Vangsgaard's spider. Like she's has a big variation in like just not only contributing with finishes, but also being very high when it comes to creating chances through carries and dribbles, and delivering the ball to her teammates with the last pass with a shot assist. So the numbers are quite similar to Vangsgaard actually when we look at just this roll spider here for a forward. This is also why she matches with the avatar, and also like still the variation is a bit different, maybe because she's been used at like more than just inside the box. We see also these deep threat and creator matches coming from her acting further down the pitch and running behind the opponent's defensive line and creating chances for her teammates in a different manner. We will see more data on her positioning later. Yeah, and we have the broad spider here, and we can see when we compare to other players in the Women's Super League, you can see that she's actually, if you see a red area here, you can see that she's actually performing the best in many different measurements here. We have expected goals without the penalties when it comes to assists for forwards, when it comes to expected passes with carries and passes. Also delivering the pass to a teammate that has the opportunity to run a longer distance, carry the ball and generate chances. So yeah, that's really cool. And this spider is compared to other forwards as well. It doesn't say it in the graphics, but that's the case. If we looked at the similar plot with Vangsgaard, but here we have Women's Super League last year. We had some kind of disturbance here, I think.
Yeah, it was really high. So
yeah.
Okay.
now
it's better. Here's the Women's Super League when it comes to goals and expected goals per 90 from last season. And we have Khadija, I think it was, Khadija Shaw and Sam Kerr being ahead of her, but otherwise she's performing above the curve. She was contributing with her chances a great deal, and almost generated a goal per game, which is amazing numbers. Like 3 goals in 4 games, almost 4 in 5. If we look at the goals per 90 and shot assists, you can see also that Khadija Shaw and Sam Kerr, they were in a different league together with Bethany England last year, compared to other forwards that were in a different region. So great performance there as well. If we look at, I also put this plot in, which is expected threat per 90 and 1 balls on offensive half. So we can see that when it comes to generating chances, and that was why she was matching so good with the creator, that player role, is that her expected threat numbers were really high last year for forwards, the second highest. And also when we look at 1 balls on offensive half, like winning the ball when Chelsea was pressurizing their opponents, you could also see that compared to other forwards, she was doing really well. So not only in attack, also in defense, she was contributing. We can see with the heat map here that she has she was both acting as number 9, but also a bit out to the right for Chelsea and dropping with Sam Kerr ahead of her. And then when it comes to defensive actions, she was acting mostly more to the left, but also this part comes from other games when she was acting lower and pressuring to the left from when Chelsea was switching systems. I took 2 passing networks here to show a bit of a difference. So here she's like a trailing forward behind Sam Kerr. Both are acting pretty central in the game, so they probably had the freedom to go out to both sides of the pitch, both of them, but just divided in between them. And here you can see where she was acting also as a trading forward, but when Chelsea was playing wider. And Harder had more ball than her, but she was contributing more with shots in these games. And Sam Kerr was the player dropping behind the opponent's defensive line. So yeah, that was the England slides.
Yeah, the first question to you, Abdullah, must be that, I mean, we see that Bethany England is one of the best strikers in the WSL, looking at these numbers. So why is she in Tottenham now, and what will she add to Tottenham?
So why is she at Tottenham? I think the only answer to that is Sam Kerr, right? Like she's like you said, one of the best. You look at the numbers, but really the answer is Sam Kerr, right? I mean, if there's anybody better than Bethany England, it's Samantha Kerr, and I think that's fair enough reason to move on, because when you've got someone like that next to you, and it'll probably be an honor and a pleasure to play with Sam Kerr and play kind of in and around that team. But for your own career, you're looking at that going, right, realistically, I'm not really going to get a number 9 starting position properly for while she is there, right? And fair enough. It's like saying you have Messi or someone in your team, right? You're not going to displace Messi for more than a game or two. So I think that's interesting. But what I found really interesting was the fact that I mean, we're obviously looking at her radar here, but the fact that she's considered an artist, a poacher, a star, a deep threat, a creator. She's got like these multiple different profiles, right? Compared to the average person in her position. And I think it's really strange, because when you look at her play, you don't expect her to be 4 or 5 different things, though she does it. But when you look at her play, you're like, all right, good in the air, has really good movement, can finish, but then you don't think of her as like this deep lying threat, deep lying playmaker sort of type striker, and someone who can create, but rather just the art, maybe more of a poacher and a star striker. I think that to me is the first thing that comes. And if you look at this, right, like it's insane the fact that if you look at all the red, expected threat passes, carries, shots, you look at the average pitch area that she covers, the amounts of balls that she receives, the threat from where she receives it from, the switches, the progressive passes. I mean, you're basically getting a complete striker. I mean, this is the sort of stuff that I would associate with it, like an Ada Hegerberg, right? Like someone who is like the hub of a top class team, sits there and just allows these players to play, but at the same time is still a massive threat. And maybe it needed for England for her being this good, for her to go to a Tottenham Hotspur, right, where she can command and say, look, I am probably the best striker in this club right now. And you basically build the team around Beth England, right? And we've already seen it slightly working. I think a lot of the questions were, we know she's a good finisher, but is that because she got really good service at Chelsea, or is that because of her own ability? And I think now we're seeing that by Tottenham investing in the likes of Mana Iwabuchi, obviously they got Drew Spence earlier, and they've got a few more in there. And the fact that they've got a little bit of service there for her, she's able to still finish, regardless of whether the service is as good as Chelsea or not. Is irrelevant now. You can tell that she gets into positions. If the ball's there, she knows how to finish. She did it against Chelsea last weekend, and then she's done it, on her debut game. There is a player here that can be this complete striker and someone who can link play for the rest of this Tottenham side, which I think is really, really interesting.
Yes, but don't you think that a team like Chelsea would, because now I'm not saying that they need it, but now I think they will need to sign another striker.
Yeah.
Chelsea is a great team, but I mean, are they too different, Sam Kerr and Bethany England, to be playing in the same team, do you think?
No, I don't think so. I think you could play with them both. I guess it depends on the system Chelsea wants to play with. But I think, as you saw last year, they could operate very well together. And since Bethany England has all these creative numbers, she can operate in that level very good. And also, like if they would play with more 2 9s, it will also be hard for the opponent to know which player to put more focus on. Like if you would put more focus on like taking Sam Kerr out, you would maybe give more space to England. And if you look at her numbers, she would definitely hurt the opponent. So you could, but if Chelsea wants to play a different system and also the contract situation, I'm not sure here with England. And also then maybe there was time to let her go and replace her with a different kind of player. Also for Bethany, maybe if that's the beliefs of Chelsea and there's a World Cup coming up and just if she wants to play more, maybe she was looking at like other opportunities for a good chance to be number 1.
Abdullah, last question on Bethany England. Will she play in the World Cup in the summer? And was it, this is like a weird question, but I'm still going to ask it because I think you can give a more deep answer to it. But is Tottenham the place for her to be, to reach the World Cup? Now you're on mute.
That's excellent. That's fantastic. See, this is where I knew something would happen. Where I'm just go back into podcast mode. No, I think the first question will probably answer the second question, and we can go from there. I think she will. I think she will be part of the squad for sure. I don't think she misses out on the 23-man squad. That I don't think so. Now, whether she plays is a different story because obviously I think Ellen White's gone, right? And Ellen White was the starting striker, but she was also the experienced striker of the squad. And Alessia Russo was the one coming on as the substitute and impacting games. And we saw what she did at the Euros. I think it's a weird chain. It'll be a weird inverse thing where I think Alessia Russo is probably the starting striker for England from now on, right? And I think England takes the experienced striker slot now, considering she's played a ton of games for England and it's obviously a very experienced player playing for Chelsea, now playing for Spurs. And I think she's the one that will come on in games and play the impact sub role, or if England want to go with 2 up front or provide that little bit of, like they're chasing a game, they need a double striker, they need somebody else in there. I think she can be that sort of player. And so and whether I think Spurs is the place for it or not, you'd have to think so, right? Because I think Spurs are the type of side that are, Spurs are the type of side that are not like bottom of the league, they're not below or bottom. They're competing for the top 4, 5, 6 positions in the WSL. They've got players there that are now pretty good, and I think it's going to be one where I think Serena is going to start looking at it and going, okay, like. As long as she keeps scoring goals and she has good performances against the likes of Chelsea, Arsenal, your Manchester Cities, and then maybe does a light work of the other teams, I don't see a reason why she doesn't get picked. I mean, the fact that she scored against Chelsea already shows that she has the quality to do it against the big sides. And if Serena and her team are going to be looking at the data as well, which I'm assuming they are, they're gonna see something like this, right? What we're looking at now, and go, all right, to have a striker like this available, who can do all the stuff and give us a tactical difference, I think is too good to turn. And think about it, like how many other English strikers are there right now that you would say can give you a difference in quality, a good tactical option, and as experienced as is Bethany England. So putting that all together, I don't really see too many players. So I would say that, yeah, I think Bethany goes and there's a good chance that she plays a decently major role, at least even if it's off the bench.
With that being said, also we are going to move on from Bethany England to actually another Chelsea player, and this one still is a Chelsea player, but she has gone on loan to Italy and AC Milan. Annick Noen.
No, sorry.
Actually,
we could do Annick Noen. I just skipped it.
We do that so I don't end up looking like an idiot for saying that.
Did I press I pressed too fast before. Okay, so here is Annick Noen. So this is also the Women's Super League from last year. So stay in Chelsea's season from last year when watching this. So this is a spider comparing her to other centre backs. And Annick Noen had really good numbers last season, even though she was maybe not the number one or number two centre back. Like when she played, she did a good job considering the data. And so you have a good cross and pass percentage, being very secure. When you look at tackles per 90 and winning tackles adjusted for possession, she was really doing a really good job there as well. Also winning balls on the offensive half, as well as winning the air duels and progressing the ball forward. So like she was all over the place. Maybe not generating chances from the back as Magdalena Eriksson, and maybe not winning duels as Millie Bright, but she was doing a good job. If we look at her player spider, you can see that she's matching both towards the physical defender and the playing center back, and that really comes from that she was a bit of a. When you look at the data, she was a bit of a hybrid in between Magdalena Eriksson and Millie Bright. She was not as good at their specialities, but she was covering them both up in a pretty good way. And she's matching more with the playing center back. I would say that she's somewhere in between, that she's really a dual center back that could do both pretty well. And the reason that while she's matching the playing center back more could be Chelsea's style, and that they were very dominating as well. So we will see in Milan that are not leading the league what a role will be there. If we look at Annick Noen's spider here, you can see some more details. You can see that from last season, when it comes to other center backs, her numbers were really high in some measurements. We can see here for sure when it comes to passes, switches, progressing the ball forward, and so on. I'm actually quite surprised they're in the top. Yeah, we'll take that later. We have also have the. I took these numbers down. We have expected threat per 90 and 1 balls on offensive half, adjusted for possession in the bottom. And we saw that she, in the spider, we saw that she was very good in winning the ball. And that's why like she were above average. Like she is in the top here, but when it comes to generating chances, she has some more to do. And I think that's maybe because like she's passing the ball a lot, but she's not maybe attempting the line-breaking passes in the same way as the best central defenders. Not being successful in that in the same way. If we look here for like gaining the ball forward and challenges per 90 adjusted for possession, we can see more of this like being both a physical center back and a playing center back, where she's really like in the middle. She's doing both measurements quite good, but she's not the best in any of them. Yeah, her defensive heat map, and here she played very central when like Chelsea played 3 in the back. She operated very central, which we also can see here in the pass networks, where I took out 2 different games. So here's like when Chelsea played with more of 3 players in the back in possession. They had Eriksson to the left and Millie to the right, and no one was in the center here. And when we look at when they played more of a 4 system, here is a game where Magdalena Eriksson was out injured. You can see that no one in one way replaced Magdalena Eriksson to the left, but they also here operated more like 4 in the back, playing next to Millie. So yeah, that was Noen's slides.
Abdullah, is Annick Noen in Italy getting playing time to prepare to replace Magdalena Eriksson in Chelsea?
So are we saying that Magdalena Eriksson is leaving? Is that
sure.
what we're saying?
I'm asking you.
If and I don't want people to catch us on this, or at least catch me on this. So I will just say, in the hypothetical that Magdalena Eriksson does leave.
Everything is hypothetical. Yeah. So
Everything is
you're good.
hypothetical until it's yes, exactly, until it's actually sent. So we've thrown out the disclaimer. I think that yes, I think Anik now was already getting. I think she's already she's already started. I think her first few games for Milan. If I'm not wrong, last week she was already put into the team of the week there as well. So I mean, if that's not a measure of how she's doing so far, I think I don't know what is. So I definitely think that she's definitely done well, and she's doing well, and I think it does her a world of good. I think Italy's a league that is up and coming. I think we don't see too many top players and teams going from to and from rather more from Italy to England and the other top teams, but I think that is slowly going to change. I think Juve, Inter, Milan, Roma, they've got some good players, and I think it's becoming a lot more of a competitive league. We're looking at it now. Like Juve may not win the league. I mean, it could be Milan, it could be Inter. Those games keep going back and forth. Roma's in there. Roma are in knockout stages of the Champions League. So it's a league that's developing tactically. I think it's a league that is doing really well. So I think for someone like Anik now to go in there and play week in week out against a decent level of players, I think is really good. And the fact that what we've seen is, you look at it, you look here, she's a ball playing center back, but she's also physical. You look at her size and you're like, she can battle in there. And the fact that she can carry the ball out and play progressively, through her carrying, I think is like probably the biggest mirror to Magdalena Eriksson that you can find, right? Magda was really good at carrying the ball out from the left-hand side, pushing into space and making those switches. And in this map, you literally see the exact same stats that Anik now has. And you look at her headers, you look at her percentages. I think she's got there. I think the one place she can improve is probably her tactical and positional intelligence in terms of when to push up, when to stay back, when to deal with what player and what position. And I think she'll learn that being, one of the more important players for this sort of Milan side. So I think if she continues her current trajectory, I don't see a reason why she doesn't just slot in next season as, like, if Chelsea do play a 3, I can definitely see her being on at least out of the 3 of them playing on the left-hand side and being that progressor alongside Khadija Buchanan. But at the same time, I can also see her. Competing against one of the other two, Millie Buchanan, for a spot as a starting striker. And I think, in my opinion, if she continues this, there's a very good chance that she becomes the third choice ahead of Jess Carter. So that's probably what I think.
Well, I'm quite curious. Yes, but we have to remember to go back and watch Anik's data from these months she will be in Italy. And then actually maybe compare them a little bit to what we are looking at now.
Yeah, of course.
To see if she is used and utilized the way, because I actually watched that game last weekend when they played Juventus. They won. It was an intense game, and I can say that I was pretty not shocked, but it was a good game of football where Milan pressed Juventus very high up the pitch every time they lost the ball. So their backline, Milan, was high during that game for a lot of time. But we have one more player.
Yes, we have one more player.
And this player has gone from France, PSG, to England to play in the WSL with Manchester United. This is probably a name that people will recognize, at least her short name. This is Estelle Cascarino.
Yes. And if this spider is from this season, so now we're going this is from last season. She hadn't played so much this season. That's why I took last season as well. And if we look at this spider, I think it's if we look at her role here, and we know that Una Battier plays on the other side. She's very good defensively and offensive, but we have someone that can. She's good in gaining the ball. She also is high in shot assist, but the numbers when it comes to expected threat prevented, like preventing dangerous attack in when the opponent is in your first third. She does very well there as well, and that's good if she has to stay behind and cover up when Una Battier has been on the run, or like just being that dual fullback role. And that's something we can see here if we look at her spider. And one reason for her being matched, so she's being matched to the center back clusters and also to the fullback clusters, and that comes from her actually playing a few games as a center back, which I think is making her being matched to the physical from where she's played, but also like the leader is a player that could play really in any of the players defensively, and that's a player that contributes both defensively but also offensively when it comes to chances and also generating chances through expected goals. Otherwise, you can see that she's really, if we look more at the fullbacks, we can see that she's a mix of being a defensive-minded fullback, but also a wingback that keeps width and runs all over the pitch. Maybe not being characterized for progressing the ball and with passes and carries in the same amount as a typical progressor, as Lucy Bronze, for example. If we look at last year's spider and we just look at the fullback cluster from last year, you can see that she's way up there with the switches and final third entries. Also here in defensive measurements, like she's not she's preventing the opponents from attacking a lot. She's covering a lot of area, which is why she's measured with the wing back. She's operating all over the pitch. Also doing good in tackles per 90 and winning the ball, considering like when Paris Saint-Germain is trying to win the ball back. Something that is pretty impressive as well is that we can see in general that pass per 90 and pass percentage is it has a trend, but like she's doing good with her passes, but also the pass percentage is really high. So like she's very safe when it comes from passing around the ball. And that we saw that she was not matching to the progressor, and that could be from like she's not maybe taking the risk of the progressor, like in delivering the ball high up and doing the more difficult passes. She's more keeping the possession. Expected threat could be it could be higher when it comes to generating chances. There were a lot of other players, maybe also like from her role playing more safe and like keeping the team in the possession, delivering to other players that creates the chances. And when we look at the challenges, she's somewhere in the middle last year. Actions in possession, we can see that you have these two different clusters. It comes from games. I think these games are more like when she has been acting as a typical fullback, like keeping width, but when the PSG has been very dominant, so she's been mostly acting on offensive half. And this comes from more when she's been playing as a centre back as well, but also like when PSG has maybe been pressured in the few games where they've been a bit further down. Defensive actions, although you can see that the focus is more localized here to the left, acting as typical fullback. Passing networks, I also took out two examples. So we have when she's playing as a fullback with Dudek and Ilestedt, and here's a game where Ilestedt was not playing and she was not Dudek either. She was playing as a centre back together with Almeida, and you can see here that although like in both games that she is really a connector, like she's having a lot of ball still, like she's delivering the ball to her teammates, both as a fullback, as a centre back. Maybe not the progressive and chance generating ones, but she's very much used in possession at PSG last year.
And this is very interesting because we are all keen on knowing where does Mark Skinner play her, Abdullah? Now you are on mute again, I think.
God, why am I? This is, you know what? I'm gonna learn. I'm gonna learn. I'm gonna get there. No, I think that's a question that I think a lot of people are gonna be having because the fact that she's versatile and she can play as both as a fullback and as a centre back. But if I really had to put had to think about it, I think she's been brought in as, it's weird because they brought in Tunkara in the summer, hasn't really played too many games as a centre back. Then they just brought some more cover in at fullback, right? Over the January transfer window. So you're like, well, you've just brought in players, but then you've brought Estelle Cascarino on top of that. And to me, it didn't make any sense, and it still doesn't make too much sense because they've got so much cover, but where they haven't played the guys, the players that they brought in, how are they going to play her? But if I had to pick, I think she's going to be likely to be playing as a centre back. I think there's a couple of reasons why. I think one, kind of watching her clips and watching the odd game that she did play for PSG, she's a very aggressive defender. So she loves stepping forward and she loves really hugging the touchline and hugging the player and kind of sticking to them and really get stuck into defensive duels. And I think when you look at just for example, you look at this pass map just as a plain example when she's playing a centre back. I mean, it's not much, but she is slightly higher than De Almeida on that side, which kind of shows that okay, she's the one that's a little bit more aggressive. You can see the darker, lines that she's the one where the ball's kind of is playing through. So she's got a little bit of range of passing over there as well. And she's got a connection with both the wide players and the central players. So there is a little bit of switching kind of going in there. You guys have listed her as this leader and this defensive minded player, right? So I think it really helps that if United and Skinner want to playing against a team that is much more superior to them, and let's say in certain areas, you could deploy her as a fullback wingback, like you said, but then she's a defensive minded one. You can almost use her in the way that Chelsea would use a Jess Carter at a fullback position, where very good at one-on-ones, very good at defending. You can play her there as like a tactical change, or you play her in the middle like she is, and you just know that you're just going to get someone who's just going to defend, right? Someone's going to sit there and it allows, like a Maya Letitia, put her next to Maya Letitia, let Letitia play make and just do all the progression that needs to be done. And then you can play her around that, right? And then she's got a little bit of range of passing there. Like we can see that she's got a really high switches per 90, a really high progressive passes per 90. So she doesn't need to drive it forward. But then what really stands out is her tackles per 90, possession adjusted, challenges percentages, all of those really everything to do with defending and tackling and really getting stuck in as like a hardcore defender, as a defensive minded defender. She's already doing better than the average center back in that position. So she's the perfect foil as almost like this no nonsense defensive minded, I will organize the defense center back, and then she can be next to a Maya Letitia, who I think is probably the perfect partner for her in terms of being able to play out and let her do the progression. And whilst your other center back has skills in that, but is definitely much more accustomed to just defending. And especially, when you have Onabachi and like Hannah Blundell and whoever else going to play on either side who want to push forward, you need someone like that who can just cover and defend that area.
This is interesting. Jesper, you like Manchester United. So hearing Abdullah speaking about Estelle Cascarino like this, do you feel good?
Yeah, I do. I think it's a good addition. I think it could be very useful to have someone that can play both positions, and also someone that's apparently is very comfortable with delivering and handling the ball a lot, which could be very useful for Manchester United. So I also think that centre back is maybe the position that she will be playing at mostly. I also think that maybe this, I don't know what you think, but it could be like a preparation also for like next season, Manchester United working to get this Champions League qualification spot, maybe hopefully qualify and add some more depth and more tools to their team. So maybe we can give her, maybe we have to give her some time, and then we'll see. what she will
Yeah.
become.
Last question, Abdullah, before we end this episode about Cascarino now, because there are lots of talk among Manchester United fans and Manchester United as a club. They need to take that step now to reach the top three in the WSL, and so they get to play the Champions League. Is this signing? I mean, is this one of the signings that are going to take them there?
You would think that in terms of having depth, because I still don't think that she's going to start too many games. I think she's been brought in as like extra cover. That if they need cover and if they need to rotate and they need to bring players in, that they're not scratching their heads going, oh no, if we don't have backup in this position, we're not going to be able to make it. I think it's one of those signings that helps them push them over the line, because then they have the assurance, they have the security to be able to kind of go forward and play without having to worry about losing. So let's just say Militana or Maya Letitia go down injured or whatever, right? They're out for one game, right? Let's say they're out for a game. You got someone like Cascarino or Tunkara, both French, both can come in and both provide high quality replacements in that same position, so you don't lose the quality, and you're gonna need to keep that quality high in order to try and finish in the top three. So, and I guess they don't want to take any chances, all things considered, that a lot of their players you'd think are who have to renew contracts are predicating on the fact that they want Champions League football. So yeah, it's a super important signing for them, I think.
We're not, because I was muted. Before we end this episode, we just need to talk about the fact that news just came out. Zecira Musovic is extending with Chelsea till 2025. Jesper, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, good. I hope they like she takes like the number one spot for sure, and like that she becomes the number one. I hope so, but still, yeah, I'm happy. It sounds nice for Sweden and for her.
For sure. And Abdullah, what do you feel? How do you feel? What do you need to say about this?
I think it's cool. I like it. I like Zecira. I think she. I've been saying I really wanted her to get a run of games and kind of prove her worth. And I think the Arsenal game was, I think, probably the best one that she had of the last 4 or 5. Obviously, the last couple of games have been a little bit shaky, just kind of because of the fact that they didn't let her bit goals. But I don't think a lot of them were entirely her fault. So that's there. But it's good to see that Chelsea, they took a chance on her, getting her on a free transfer a couple of years ago, and it's paying off. And the fact that they've given her an extension, I think, is just their faith in her, that they really feel like she can be a number one. And she's got the makings of being a top class goalkeeper, and I can see her being probably a top 2-3 goalkeeper if she continues her trajectory in probably the next 4 or 5 years. And if she does that, Chelsea have a goalkeeper for at least the next 5 to 10 years if they really want her there. So yeah, it's exciting. So nice to see that.
Great news to end this episode with. Abdullah, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, very nice having you on the broadcast.
It was fun.
Yes,
it's been
that's the most important thing, when you are live and you feel your pulse is racing and stuff like that, and then when you mute yourself and you have a cat in the other room, Jesper, that doesn't enjoy it. And I just realized that I was stupid enough to fill my washing machine up and start it because it's been acting really crazy all the while. But with that being said, let's end this episode with a bye-bye, and I'll see you next time. And Abdullah, will definitely hear from you again.
I definitely will. It's been great. Thank you, guys.
See you next time.